Hi, I'm Richard Hill, and today I want to talk to you about self-limiting beliefs and self-sabotage behaviours. This is still an enormous problem, even though we've had decades of working with this and motivational exercises and conferences, and yet it still troubles us. So at the Mind Science Institute, we've looked into this from the brain point of view, and we've tried to come up with a few other ideas that can help you maybe find the one that will overcome this problem of just not feeling you're good enough, not feeling right, not feeling you're able to, and just ruining things, this self-sabotage behaviour. So there we are, limiting beliefs, self-sabotaging behaviour. Well, mostly what we talk about is and I've looked around the web and seen some fantastic programs that are talking about this imprinting that occurs from the past, where particularly when you're young, under 10 years of age, and you get people saying you're no good, whether it's parents or teachers or maybe even your peers, the bullies at school who tell you you're no good. But sometimes your peers cause this problem as well, because they box you in as the class clown or the cute but dumb or whatever, those sorts of maybe fun things at the time when you're kids, but they really start to be a problem later on in life. So the one that we're all pretty familiar with is number one, and that's the past, and what we call imprinting, where these ideas have gone right into our brain, beyond our conscious thinking and into areas of automatic thinking, what we call the limbic area and we call the basal ganglia, which are kind of cute names they have for all these different places of the brain. But that's where they stick, and without thinking about it, suddenly when something comes up, we behave as if that limiting story, that imprinted message is true. And the thing is, it's probably not true. But sometimes it just gets re-imprinted, and there are a few other reasons for that. And that's what I want to go through with you now. On this second one, done the first one, this is a one, and in the intellectual area, it's called stereotype threat. Now, all this means is that the stereotypes, the things that everybody says is true, what the culture says. Remember, this first one is talking about where you are individually told that you're not good enough and that you're incapable and all those sorts of negative things. In this one, it's just when there's a general overall attitude towards these things, and there's lots of them. I mean, in some cultures, depending on your religion or the colour of your skin or your gender, you're less intelligent. And there's been a number of experiments where they've looked at people and different groups, when they've been put under pressure of having to be intelligent, they've actually underperformed, because somewhere in their brains was something that said, oh no, everyone says that people like you aren't any good. So you've got this past imprinting, that first one, where it's saying people have said you are no good. Then there's this stereotype where it's saying people like you are no good, which is extraordinary to think that that would affect you. And it's extraordinary to think that our prejudices and our negative attitudes towards other people can actually turn around and hurt them. So we need to be aware of what we're thinking on both ends of the stick. Now the third one, and this is actually my big contribution to the world of problems in resolving things, and in my work as a psychotherapist, this is one of the big problems. Why I call it the winner-loser world. But actually, it's kind of an extension of stereotype threat. And it's this aspect of living that we've developed now in our culture, where you need to constantly live up to expectations. You need to constantly be what other people say are good enough. Now this is really very difficult. If you can only be successful if you're a winner, but we're not talking about winner as in what you think is a winner. We're talking about you can only be successful if you're a winner in what other people think is a winner. And the trouble is, they keep changing this rule. So even when you achieve what they say, oh no, we don't want that anymore. You're no longer, now you're a loser. And it's really only been in the last 10 or 15 years that we actually had the word loser come into our culture. Loser. You've seen that? Like a joke. And that really reinforces the past imprinting. So specifically when they were young they were told they were no good. Then when they get older, the whole world tells them they're no good. And this is very difficult. And I've had some very, very serious and very sad cases of people who, even when they were doing their best, believed that they were not good enough. This is the winner-loser-world mentality. And it changes the way your brain works, and it makes it work less successfully, just as the stereotype threat does, just as the imprinting does. But there's a fourth one that we've found, which is quite interesting in the way it does it in relation to business and things like school. It's incorporating all these, but it's just simply the business world stress. And the business world can just be a place that is really quite unpleasant, in the sense that there's deadlines, there's KPIs to meet up to, there's all these, again, this external stuff like the win-or-loser world, but so many of the things that are expected in some business areas just aren't humanly possible. But they need to be those areas. They've been worked out on economic lines, and they've been worked out on production lines, and they've been worked out on manufacturing and selling lines. Now, I want to stress that I'm not talking about life being a bit difficult. I'm not talking about life being a challenge. I'm not talking about the sorts of things where you have something that's really hard to do and you've got to put yourself right down your shoulder to the grindstone and make it work. They're things that make us stronger and we grow from. But when we are pushed and pressured and constantly told, no, you are the reason why you can't do this, you are not trying hard enough, you are no good, you are what is the problem, and this just eventually closes you down. And, well, we've seen it. People are in really bad states sometimes, particularly from the stress in the business world. The sorts of emotional disturbances that are going on, and the stress leave is becoming a huge thing. Now, we don't need to do that. Not really. I mean, maybe some of these business practices need to be reorganised and redesigned so that the expectations are not so impossible for human beings. But I also think there are quite a lot of human beings who need a bit of a motivation. I was going to say a bit of a boot up there, but they need some motivation to actually perform at their maximum. There's somewhere a line there that is really related to that sense of personal challenge, and it excites you and drives you on. But if it makes you anxious and upset and stressed and emotionally fragile, well, what's the point? So what's the best way to get out of this? And can't you feel it as we've been talking about it? It's sort of like, oh, it just gets closer and closer, and we start to really hone down on the problem. And that's what stress does to us. It makes us hone down on the thing that we believe is causing us stress to solve that issue. Whereas creative and expansive and socially engaged stuff, well, that's kind of open, and we're very open to things. We may be challenged, but we're not stressed about the challenge. Well, the way we do this, and I'll just take this off the board, you can just go back and on the old rewind button if you want to catch those things. It's really interesting. What is the simplest thing to enable us to get over stress and overpowering and overwhelm and feelings of what is being pushed upon us from the outside? Is we waken up the inside. And we do this with curiosity. Might sound really simple, but it is. If you're curious about what is going on, you become the center of the picture. So I can't be curious from an external point of view. I can't be curious from out there. I can only be curious from in here. And when I'm curious, I'm looking at what is not there. I'm looking at what I don't know. I'm looking at where I possibly can be. Looking at possibilities, looking at all these things. So curiosity is really something that stirs a different set of brain activities, rather than this, no, you're no good, you're down, your thing that goes down like that. Curiosity opens up. So here's a really simple set of processes you can do when you come across this thing of, I can't, it's no good, I'll never, it won't, all these hyperbole type of words, hyperbolous type of words, where we're limiting ourselves or saying, this is no good. First one, open your curiosity by finding it interesting. In fact, you can say to yourself, that's interesting. That's interesting. Now, I know some people can be very cynical about that and say, oh, that's interesting. But actually to say, that's interesting. I don't know about that. That's interesting. Tell me more about that. I'm interested in that. And if you sort of say to yourself, that's interesting, often enough, something bad happens. And you go, no, that's interesting. Rather than going, oh, yeah, well, that's fair enough. Yes, that bad things happen to me. They're supposed to happen to me. That's this belief system. Whereas that's interesting doesn't have beliefs. It is curiosity. So something bad happens. You go, wow, that's so interesting that happened to me. And sometimes you'll find it might take you half a dozen or more times of going, that's interesting. Well, why is it interesting? Well, it's interesting because I don't know about it. Well, why don't you know about it? Well, I don't know why I don't know about it. That's interesting. It might take you a little while to get yourself out of the hole of those negative beliefs. But those negative beliefs, those stereotype threats, those win-or-lose-a-world mindsets don't live in the world of curiosity. In the world of curiosity, they don't exist. They only exist in the world of stress and anxiety and negativity. So you start off with that's interesting. The second thing when you're looking at it is there a message in this problem? Is there a message in this problem? It's quite fascinating to imagine that problems can be messages, but they very often are. We come across problems, and those problems are the things we manifest because there's something we need to know, there's something we need to learn. So the problem is a message. So, okay, that bad thing happened. I wonder what I was doing that created it. I wonder what other people were doing that created that. How did that become possible? Where does this come from? Maybe it comes from one of the limiting beliefs I had when I was younger. Maybe I should get rid of that limiting belief. Well, that's interesting. It's interesting I have that limiting belief. Suddenly it all opens up. And the third thing that you do is very simply say to yourself, what can I create from this? What can I create from this? What can I make? What's new? What's interesting? What will take me somewhere else? And it could be just the tiniest thing. Well, I can create the idea that maybe my limiting beliefs aren't true. That's a good start. I can create the idea that maybe I'm under a stereotype threat and actually this isn't true and this isn't right. Or maybe I can think about the fact that I'm focusing on all the things that are going wrong and how much I'm angry with my wife. And maybe what I can create for this is go back to all the things that I really like about my wife or my partner or my kids or my boss or my workmates. There's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot of things you can do to change the way you live. It's very difficult, and actually working with those limiting beliefs and those stereotype threats and those win-or-lose-a-world mentalities and the stress of business, that can take a little bit longer. But you can move away from them by opening up your curiosity almost immediately. Take you a minute. And then suddenly those things are there, but they're more distant. And in fact, the more you go to curiosity, the more distant these become. Certainly the curiosity-oriented approach that we take at the Mind Science Institute does a lot of things. So there's a run-through of something different, something new. It's curiosity. May have killed the cat, so you can't do too much. We've got to be mindful of it. But curiosity shifts you from negative beliefs and self-destructive behaviour and self-sabotaging behaviour because they can't exist in the same space. And that's the message from me today. I'm Richard Hill. Thank you very much.